So I just recently turned 25, which has led to me doing some reflecting on my financial journey this far. And it's crazy to think that in the span of just over a couple of years, I've gone from a point where I didn't really know much about money or how to grow my wealth to where now I'm sitting at a net worth of multiple six figures and I'm continuing to scale that every single month. So, how did I do this? Well, I didn't earn the salary of a software engineer and I haven't started some kind of drop shipping business or clothing brand. This is simply through me adopting three different financial habits that have completely altered my financial trajectory. So, in this video, I'm going to explain these three different habits and how you guys can apply them to your lives as well so that you can have the same financial success that I've been seeing in my life. So, the first habit is probably one of the most important mindset shifts that I've had, and that's that I treat every single dollar that I spend now as hours that I'm going to have to work in the future. And what I mean by this is that most people take 3 to 4% of their paycheck, if that, and they put it into their 401ks, and then they take the rest of their money that they earn and they spend it on things like eating out, their car payments, and maybe getting excessive rent or an excessive mortgage. And the reason this happens is because we've been told that 65 is the main retirement age, and that's when everyone retires. So, why would you delay gratification now when you're going to have to work to that age anyways? But the thing is that that's not the truth. And when I spend money, I see it as my retirement date just being pushed out further and further. So, this allows me to really evaluate everything that I buy and determine if that's a worthwhile trade off. Because if I say want to buy a new pair of jeans and they're $100, I look at that and decide, is that pair of jeans really worth it for me to have to work more in the future? And that really helps me to understand if I really want to buy something or if I feel like that money would be better placed into investments to help reduce my working life uh, as I move forward. So, you don't need to be a monk, and I still like to spend money on lots of things that bring me joy, like going on trips or going out to eat. But it really does help with a lot of the things that you would normally buy that are just junk or that you really don't need. So, this was a huge mindset shift for me and has definitely helped my net worth. So, the second habit that has helped to completely alter my financial future has been learning to invest rather than just save. And this might seem like common sense to a lot of you guys, but when I first got out of college and got my first job, I really didn't know much about investing. And I thought that taking my extra money and just putting it away in a bank account was the financially responsible thing to do because that's what we're taught growing up. You're supposed to spend less than you make and put the rest into a bank account to help save for future expenses. But you're never really taught about inflation and how that eats away at your money over time. So, whenever I realized this, I took everything I had outside of my emergency fund and just put it all into stocks and just let it ride. And since then, that has helped to completely explode my net worth. So, if you're sitting on a big pile of cash, make sure you have an emergency fund, but outside of that, I would invest it. And you'll be so thankful you did in 10, 20, or 30 years when you see the gains you've made on that money. So, the third habit I've developed has been to embrace risk rather than strictly following the traditional investing advice. And what I mean by this is that when I first started to learn about investing, my main source of information was Reddit, where I found subreddits like the Boglehead subreddit. And in this particular subreddit, the main advice is to have a split between US stocks, international stocks, and then also US bonds. And I think this is good for a pretty well rounded portfolio for someone that just wants to set it and forget it. But one thing I noticed is that these subreddits typically frowned upon anything more on the growth side, like my favorite ETF, which is SCHG, where there's typically a higher allocation to tech stocks. And you certainly won't find anyone in these subreddits talking about something like Bitcoin. And I've since learned to embrace these riskier assets more, and I've invested a lot into the tech side as well as some money into Bitcoin. And doing this has definitely helped to accelerate my net worth. And I will say I have only been investing during a bull market, so who knows, I could be eating my words here in a couple of years, but so far I feel like I've made the right choice. And especially being that I'm in my 20s, I think that having a more risk heavy portfolio will definitely pay off long term. And I think if you're in the same spot where you're in your 20s or 30s and you have a long time to recover from any downturns, I think you should definitely look into riskier assets to pretty much supercharge your portfolio long term. So, by adopting these habits into my everyday life and being consistent with them over time, I've gone from a point where I didn't really know much about money management or how to become more wealthy to where now I'm scaling my net worth to multiple six figures and continuing to improve with it every single month. And none of this would happen if I didn't adopt these habits. So, I would start with one of these habits or maybe all three, but the important thing to remember is just to be consistent over time with these habits, and I promise you'll see some amazing results with your financial trajectory over time. So, thank you guys for watching, and if you appreciate this content, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.